Okay, so we'll give it maybe 2 more minutes here to allow more people to trickle in. Okay, you guys. So I'll go ahead and get started and we'll just kind of let people trickle in whenever they do. Hi, everyone. My name is Olga Redding, and I am the Iowa Organic Association Education Outreach Coordinator. I have been in charge of delivering this growing organic expertise in colleges across the state of Iowa program. And this is our second year delivering this program. We are excited to partner with 17 different colleges now, and very appreciative for everyone that has worked with us. So what I'm going to do is just give you a brief overview in regards to our first year results. So within our first year, we worked with the following colleges: DMAC in the Des Moines Metro, Iowa Central Community College, University of Northern Iowa, Morningside University, Drake University Agricultural Law, University of Iowa, Iowa State University, Iowa Upper Iowa University, Luther College, and North Iowa Community College. So based on the evaluation results from our first year of conducting this program, which is, by the way, sponsored by Iowa Department of Natural Resources, Resource Enhancement and Protection Conservation Education Program that we like to abbreviate with REAP-SEP. Okay, so with this REAP-SEP program, within our first year of delivering this program, we have been able to reach 560 students. Out of these 560 students, 73% had little to no knowledge about the topics that we cover during these presentations in regards to the National Organic Program or organic practices and things of that nature. And 90% of the students were able to gain new knowledge from our presentations. A big variety of the students represented, students from agriculture field, conservation field, environmental studies, and agronomy. And this is our second year of delivering this program to another 10 colleges. And we were able to accomplish our presentations in the fall semester. And here today, I'm excited to introduce you to some of the, the farmers that were able to participate in these programs. Because what I do, depending on where the college is located, I invite an organic farmer close to that college to be part of the program so they can share their, their experience with organic. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and share Kim's presentation, since she has a few slides to share with you today, and she will be the one to go ahead and start us off with her presentation. So let me go ahead and get this started. So Kim, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and kind of get started with the presentation, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Okay, can you hear me, Olga?
Yes, I can hear you. And then can everybody see the slides? Yeah. Okay. So Kim,
okay,
mm-hmm.
I was a farmer presenter at the Indian Hills Community College Centerville campus. The first slide just has my contact information in case you have questions for me at farmerkima@gmail. Don't forget the A or I won't get the email. For some reason, since I'm a blueberry grower and that's kind of different in Iowa, I get called the blueberry lady, but that's okay. The questions I'm going to address are some of the same things we talked about in the presentation. And on the first slide here, answering the question, why organic? So I've had cancer twice. So that's a reason to make lifestyle changes. And that involved, for me, changing diet and changing a lot of things in my household, like from cleaning products, all those kinds of things. We are on a small farm, so we have about 435 acres, but just about a little over 200 of that is actually tillable. The rest is in wetland and timber. And so trying to make sense of, how you make that work when you don't want to get bigger and you just want to deal with the acres that you have, leads to number 3, use what we have. That was kind of drilled into me by my grandmother. Every time I came to this farm to visit through the years, she would always be remaking, reusing, cycling something before that was really popular. Family history. This is a century farm. We've been farming in this neighborhood since the late 1800s. And I think originally it was probably all done organically. And then 5, just better health for all. By that, I mean, for the people that come here and pick from our U-Pick, to the employees that we have, to us as the farmers, not having to deal with chemicals and figure all of that out. So why does organic matter for us? Again, it has to do with legacy. Picture that I presented there is my Zillman ancestors that came here from Switzerland. That's my great grandfather, the boy in the middle in that lower row. And then this is our family. Around the 4th of July, it was the first time that both of our sons with all of our grandchildren were here during our blueberry season. So it's really fun to have them all here. And the third reason why does organic matter is for health. And so any of you that were just at our organic conference annual meeting, that was all about health. And my husband was super impressed with the presenters. So if you're interested, go to YouTube and watch the recording of those presentations. So we've been organic since 2014. We basically took back the farm from a long-term tenant because after my grandfather retired from farming, my dad was an only child and he wasn't interested. So it skipped a generation. So I always say I'm 5th generation, but it skipped the 4th generation. So the farm was rented out for a period of time. Once we took it back, we established the Zillman family farm. We planted an orchard of fruit and nut trees. Then in 2017, we planted 5.5 acres of organic high bush blueberries. And then we've also started a seed business. So we have a number of different entities going on the farm, or enterprises. So here's a picture of all things happened in 2022. Some of the things from the orchard, the pawpaw, chestnut persimmon. We probably had the most chestnut persimmon this year that we've had so far. And pawpaw production was kind of low. We think we may have experienced some drift, potentially a late frost that affected that production. I don't have a picture, but we also have hazelnuts. Those are primarily all U-Pick. And then my brother comes down from Iowa City and picks a lot of these things and sells them through channels in the Iowa City area. We also have that I labeled that picture wrong. You're going to say that's not wheat, that's rye being harvested. And now there's wheat in that field for next. There's a picture of the oats that we're harvesting and our soybean field, organic soybeans that were drilled into a tilled environment, but then only rotary hoed once. And so that's something we've been experimenting with the last couple of years and will keep doing. I guess my advice here is grow something you love. And farm goals, overall, we want to grow food versus feed. The rewards, I'll go over those before the challenges. The community of farmers, groups like Iowa, Practical Farmers of Iowa. I feel like organic farmers have been more willing to share information. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's how it feels. The growth of organic eaters in the industry overall is a reward. I feel like certified organic, it verifies our commitment and makes things traceable and trackable. The lower input costs for the row crops, the use of older, more affordable equipment. Since we were 5th generation, we really didn't inherit any equipment on this farm since my dad didn't farm. So we had to go out and buy everything. We were able to do that at auctions and fairly close by. The financial premiums for 2022, we were able to sell our organic soybeans on contract for $38 a bushel. And as mentioned before, just the organizations like Iowa Organic, Practical Farmers of Iowa, among many other groups that have been part of my learning by attending conferences and just reaching out to other people doing this and learning from all of them. The challenges, I divided this into 2 things. The challenges in the blueberry field particularly are the weeds, tools, equipment that works for our size of operation has been kind of hard to source and figure out. Japanese beetles, which are probably our worst pest issue that we don't really still have a good solution for. Finding local resources to help with blueberry issues in general has been difficult because blueberries are not commonly grown in Iowa. And the 5th challenge has been irrigation, which it's been a challenge since the beginning, but 2022, we were in a D2 drought again, just like in 2017 when we planted. And so we ran into water issues, not enough water and not enough flow to make our system work correctly. Challenges in the row crops have been sourcing fertilizer, finding markets, and growing more than corn and soybeans. Picture in the lower right is the blueberry fields, like a row that hasn't been weeded on the top versus a row after it's weeded on the bottom. I feel like they say, thank you, I can breathe again. Why blueberries? That's the other big question that I get. And the same question about the orchard as well and some of the crops we have there. We were looking for perennial things that we were not going to be constant, doing tillage, something that we could put in and it would grow for a long time. So for example, with the blueberries, they can grow for 50 years. The financial reward with the blueberries is quicker than with the orchard crops. So we just finished our 4th year of being open and we had 4 tons. So over 8,000 pounds of blueberries picked in year 4. Organic premiums. Some people ask me, do you make jams and lotions and potions out of your blueberries? And I always say that my added value is that I'm certified organic. Building community with the blueberries, we've utilized our Amish neighboring community to help us with not only a small picking crew this year, but with a group weeding day, which was amazing, where we got 23 rows weeded in one day, which felt awesome. And then growing food versus feed, going back to our farm goal. And number 1, I love blueberries, and so do the little kids picture, who are my grandkids. The picture in the lower right is our new commercial refrigerator, because in season 4 was our first year to sell wholesale to a grocery store. So this is what the refrigerator looks like the night before the delivery. And I think that's all I've got.
Awesome. Thank you, Kim, for sharing this with us. This is really fun. And thank you for presenting with alongside me at Iowa Central Community College. Well, no, not Iowa Central Community, Indian Hills Community College. Kim and I, we actually had the opportunity to present 3 times that day. We had 2-hour presentations 3 times that day. That was the first time when a professor asked to have us present at 3 classes, but we went for it and we did it and it was fun. So thank you, Kim, for being part of that. All right, so I'll go ahead and Kim, if you want to mute yourself, you can, but I'll go ahead and pick on Pete. So Pete and I presented at Iowa Central Community College. This was our second year presenting at Iowa Central Community College because they invited us to come again this year. So this is kind of the same professor we worked with, Mike Robertson. And so Pete, if you want to go ahead and share your story, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you, Olga. I'm Pete Kapuska. I grew up just about 8 miles away from where I live in Fort Dodge, Iowa, in a small town called Barnum. I am one of 8 kids. Went to Iowa State in 1982 to 86, graduated with a degree in agribusiness. While at college, did a lot of commuting because of the issues of the late 70s, early 80s financially. I was helping out on the farm, and then my father got sick and eventually passed away of bone cancer after following college. So I had a lot of things going on, a lot of economics, a lot of drama, I guess you'd say, at the times. And unfortunately, like most people in farming, it's almost like a murder mystery. You have to start with somebody else passing away. And that's how my farm story got started. Although I grew up on the farm, I wasn't probably the first choice to be the farmer in the family. Third oldest child, second oldest boy. Dad had expanded in the 80s, thinking one of us kids would come back. And I was the one that decided it was priority for me to do that, something I wanted to pursue after college. But I went away to college with a very economic-minded view of the world and how things would work out. So graduated with a degree in agribusiness, and coming back to the farm after my dad passed away, looking at the options that were there in order to avoid things that happened in the 80s, I started looking at things differently. And I did a little of that while I was in college and working with a couple of farmers in the Ames area, one of them, Jerry Britton up by Ziering, who exposed me to ridge-till farming. And then also a couple other farmers in the area that were more intense about their agronomy and more intense about their livestock management. It all kind of brought me to coming back to the farm and trying to have a diversity there. Even though we were considered a big farmer in the 80s, when I was farming, we were down to about 400 acres. And in doing everything I could to manage that farm by cutting expenses and keeping my costs low, I ran into the issue that a lot of people have. They just can't scale to the economics they need in order to provide a good living for them and their family. And I also had a little help with the weather event on Halloween of 1991 when we had an ice storm come, and while having livestock, I had some issues there and also some crops yet in the field. And so I took 92 to get out of farming. Since then, I was involved a lot in agribusiness. I worked for a number of different seed companies, including Garst back in 1993, the flood year. So I didn't see much of the flood year because they shipped me over to Ukraine, and I was there through most of the growing season. When I came back, my wife said she liked having me around a lot more. So I got a local job working for the Growmark system in Moreland. And as that system was closed up, moved to Rockwell City to work. As that system was winding down, I took on a position with a Growmark down by Des Moines, Central Iowa FS, and managed their Redfield and then their Perry and Redfield locations. As that system was changing, I went to work for Prairie Land in New Providence and Owasso, Iowa. So I had a lot of good co-op experience, exposure to seed, chemicals, fertilizer, technology. I kind of considered myself to be informed and on the cutting edge of things that were going on. In the co-op, though, I really gravitated more towards seed, and that became an issue with management and how we were growing the seed business, and some of the local farmer dealers weren't excited about that. And that was at a time when traits and technology were coming in. So we had a natural fit. So I went to work for a number of different seed companies, Stauffer Seed twice. Yeah, big stories there, but worked for Monsanto, spent a majority of my time with the Great Lakes brand, part of AgReliant, and then finished up with Trissler and Fontenelle as those two were consolidated. Went to work for a startup insurance company that eventually became Climate Corp. Worked for adjuvant nutritional companies, one of them based out of Brazil, which was a very interesting time as well. And then 4 years ago, started working with a company founded by farmers that were working with organic farmers. I'd been exposed to organics through the seed part of things, and with adjuvant nutritionals had been involved there. I'd been a regional manager for calcium products and was aware and worked with some of their farmer customers who were looking at us for those OMRI certified products to enhance the crop conditions, growing conditions for their crops. And so as I looked at this AgriSecure company, what they were trying to do was help farmers manage information and data and provide a network of support so people could scale their organic to what they needed. It really intrigued me, and I was able to start on board with them. And as the years went by, they had partnered with Farmers Business Network and then had split the partnership a year ago. Myself and one of the other account executives then bought out or took over the brand and rebranded as Peak Ag. And now we're still working with farmers who are managing documents and information for certification and helping out in those other areas as well. But a lot of my organic story doesn't necessarily revolve around those work experiences at the I guess you'd say, a professional level. With COVID back in 2020, I had the opportunity to try to get in front of people in a different way, and getting online and looking and trying to find who was doing organic and what they were learning, what they were seeing. I stumbled on a number of different farmers who were looking for organic tenants. People that from a landowning point of view were very committed to organics, but couldn't find that right individual to work with it. And I was able to pair up with a farmer who had 105 acres of already certified organic crop. The only drawback is it was in New Glarus, Wisconsin, 4 hours away from where I live. I thought I could help him manage and find local labor and keep things moving in the direction he wanted to move it. But the more I looked and talked to people, there weren't people really focused in on how to make organics work well. And I didn't feel it was fair to the landowner to kind of push him off onto a tenant that really wasn't going to probably work out in the long run. So I took a loan against my 401k and against a lot of people's advice and wishes, got back into farming on June 1st of 2020. I signed the lease, planted organic soybeans. Last year was organic corn, and I just finished harvesting Monday organic soybeans over in Wisconsin. So long story short, I've seen agriculture in a lot of different ways, kind of that 70s, 80s, active growth, large scale farming, scaling large in order to be successful in what people would consider successful, of either generating revenue or having shiny green equipment, or being recognized as having a cleaner field, or some intelligence beyond the normal farmer that showed you cared, to working with those kind of farmers in the retail settings of helping them try to improve things, but always getting to the point of, yeah, we're improving, but what are we improving towards? At the end of the day, we were still chasing money. People were growing their acres. Maybe the technology helped them manage things better, but when it was all said and done, did it really make a difference anywhere? And the people that have been around that made an impact on my life were the ones that I can point to and said their approach to things, how they did things, made a difference in my life and probably other people's lives too. And so part of it for me is, and I think for everybody is, at some point you start to realize that maybe I'm that person for somebody else too. And I think for me, the organic opportunity that presented itself and how I stumbled in or kept up with it has been a very good decision for me, and brought me in contact with a lot of those people that are thought leaders, but are able to place things in a proper perspective that's a long-term and sustainable message. There's so many things in conventional agriculture as I see that are quick and temporary and maybe give you a sugar high or buzz, but then things collapse back to a natural setting, water finding its own level, if you will. Organics to me is a lot different in that you're going to get into it a lot of what you're going to get out of it a lot of what you put into it in terms of effort. I had a conversation with my custom harvester about that while it was only 105 acres, the intensity of management and blood, sweat, tears, everything on that farm made it more challenging, more rewarding than just about anything else I've done in life. And then the thinking through how years go by of how to change or improve that farm in order to keep the landlord happy, but then also I know that by doing that, it helps me change and improve as well. One of the things I kind of keep thinking back about as well is that a lot of people will look at organics and see a dollar amount for a premium in the market compared to conventional and think it's all about the economics. And I'll be honest, that's what attracted me initially. Because of the financial end of farming and what my family and I had gone through, you certainly don't want to go into a business and fail. And so that premium really got me excited about what do I need to do in order to capture that? Because at the other end of that premium is a real person that's spending real money, and that's time and effort on their part in order to take what you've got and enjoy it for what they're going to spend. I think that's a real big difference between conventional and organic farming is that connected to that end user and the value that they assign to it and the faith they have in the system that produces it. And so just like most decisions in life that we try to think about as being cold emotional decisions, they end up becoming emotional decisions that we then justify with logic. I know when Kim was talking earlier about what brought her into organics and how she thinks about things from a health point of view and with her issues and not uncommon issues with cancer. And my dad died of cancer being on the farm, and probably chemistry in one way or another played a role in what happened to him. It was certainly something that I thought about as well. I'd had an injury when I was working in the co-op system with anhydrous ammonia. Luckily, it wasn't severe, although at the time it was no long-term effects that I can really detect. But it is something that kind of keeps me grounded in the fact that there's a simpler and a balance to things. And if we try to fight it, a lot of times things don't work out real well. So the financial part of things, I will say, on the farming has been good. I am trying to acquire a more firm base of operation close to Fort Dodge because I have grandchildren and I want to spend more time with them rather than the 4 hours one way and 4 hours on the road coming back. That seems wasted, especially on weekends when I could see them. So it's a lot about talking with farmers and talking with landowners about what's the best future for their farming operation and for their individual farms. I think one thing that I can point to is, like Kim said, you don't need the greatest and fanciest equipment. In the 2 years and now this third crop that I've been farming, I don't have harvest equipment, but all my equipment that I farm is paid for. If I was conventional and trying to start farming without a large endowment from an uncle or a relative of farmland and machinery, it's hard to imagine a farmer paying for a line of equipment in any short period of time. And when you're able to do those kind of things, it does change how you look at other decisions about conservation, about what you give back to the community instead of trying to scrape and grab that last dollar and compete against that other farmer. You tend to be more collaborative and more cooperative because you see more value in that than trying to beat up a neighbor in order to rent another, 20 acres or 50 acres or 100 acres. So I think that's one of the really nice things about organic farming, and Kim mentioned it as well, that they're much more interested in sharing and networking and collaborating on things and brainstorming. I can honestly say that's one of the worst things about the last 40, 50 years, when I think about it, is what's happened to our small towns and our small communities as we've gotten larger farmers, we've got fewer farmhouses, we've got fewer farm families, we've got smaller churches, and we have churches in all these communities. Same with schools, the same with grocery stores and other support businesses. When you look at the sustainability and the operation in areas that are more tuned towards organic, there's an economic vibrance that is reminiscent to me of those earlier times. It just makes a big economic impact on an area, on a geography, but I think also in people's lives. And I think that's a big part of things that is not quantitatable when you start talking to most people that haven't thought about farming in an organic way. So as I kind of look forward, and I mentioned about trying to find some ground closer to the area, probably the biggest passion I have then is, along with that, knowing that what I would start, no one's going to finish. Nobody takes their land with them when they die. Nobody farms for 50 years and takes all the chips off the table. The land, the opportunities go to somebody else. And the ability within this world of organic agriculture to bring new people in various and different roles. And I think for me, the opportunity to work with somebody out of high school, out of college, somebody who wants to farm, somebody who has the interest and desire and the ability to withstand the heartache and the stress of things to see the better days. It'd be nice to be able to mentor and help people like that get started. And I think the proverb about planting a tree that you would never enjoy the shade of is definitely something I look forward to with what time I have left on Earth.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pete. That was awesome. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your journey to organic. And I love that proverb there at the end. So much appreciated.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and pick on, let's see. I think I said Rob because I'm trying to do this alphabetically. So let's go. Rob, if you want to go ahead and be the next presenter, that would be great. And Rob and I, we presented at University of Northern Iowa this semester, and this was actually our second time presenting at UNI because we presented there last year too. So this is a college that we've been working with for the last 2 years. So Rob, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and share your story and journey, that would be greatly appreciated.
Sure. Thank you for having me. It's good to see some familiar faces too, some of the other farmers I know. I'm probably going to be a little bit different than in terms of our farm story than some of the others, because our farm size is a lot smaller than most of theirs. We are located near Tripola, Iowa, which is northeast of Waterloo, Cedar Falls by about a 40-minute drive for those who want to try and place us. We're called the Genuine Fox Farm, based off my last name, which is spelled F-A-U-X. If you know French, that means we're the Genuine Fake Farm, if that helps any of you. Our farm is a total of 15 acres in size, so we are not very big, and we concentrate on diversified vegetable and poultry production. So we're a small-scale diversified farm. We do not grow any row crops, and it's a little bit different than what the rest are doing. But before you discount us, I'd like to point out that during our best years, our farm can produce 15 tons of food in one season. So 15 acres can produce an awful lot of edible food if you apply yourselves and try to use some good practices. As far as why we chose to farm organic, and we've been farming since 2004 on this farm, and we became certified organic in 2007, and that partly has to do with the fact that you have to wait 3 years for fields to convert from prior non-organic use. And a lot of the land we're growing on was being used for corn and soybean production prior to our moving here. So we had to convert that land over from systems that were row cropping and were chemical row cropping systems. So we had to go through the transition. We initially, for some of the same reasons as Pete and Kim, we initially decided to be organic because we were concerned about chemicals on our food. That was part of our initial concern. And we were going to be selling food directly to individuals we would be meeting on a weekly basis. I mean, these are folks that we're giving food to. And the last thing we want to do is provide them with something that could potentially harm them. We saw that as a very strong responsibility. So we needed to use practices that helped us provide the safest, highest quality food products for individuals that we would see regularly. Not that we would feel any differently if I didn't see these individuals, but it adds a little bit of extra when you hand a box of fresh produce over to somebody and you know that person has an immune deficiency and that they are more sensitive to potentially having a problem with something if you provide them with something that has a chemical on it that they would react to. So that was our first motivation. But I'll be also honest with you, when you're talking about a small scale farm and you're doing local food sales, saying that you're certified organic was actually a good marketing choice and a good farm identity choice. When you could say we are certified organic and you could talk about what that means clearly, certain individuals would be more interested in you all of a sudden. It's like, oh, you're certified organic, okay, or you use the word organic. And you can talk about it intelligently. That opened up a little bit of a market for us where people would come to us because they heard those words. Just to answer that question in advance too, we never have used a price, organic price markup. We've always charged what we would have charged even if we weren't certified organic. But we did with our identification get a little bit more sales this way. So that's one way we actually used it. One of the other things that I wanted to point out too is I've always tended to believe, my wife and I've always tended to believe that we need in Iowa more farmers on the land. We need more farmers on the land with smaller farms, not necessarily my size 15 acres, but we need more people on the land doing farming and doing it well. And I've kind of come to believe that certified organic or organic practices tend to support that actual approach. Whereas when you get into conventional farming, that supports people with an awful lot of money, throwing a lot of chemicals on the soil and fewer people on the land, fewer people controlling the land. So that's another reason why I tend to support it, is I want to see more people engaged in farming on more farms. I want to have more access for young folks or people who want to farm to land. Right now, you've already heard two instances of how this is going to happen. If you want to farm, you either have to inherit it through your family, or you have to be in a situation where you're willing to purchase an acreage, like 15 acres, and try to do a small scale vegetable adventure such as ours. But otherwise, you're going to have a hard time breaking into farming. So in some ways, that's kind of why we're at this point, is this is where you can break in if you don't already have access to a farm. Reasons why we farm organically have changed over time, and I think this is interesting to explore. We've always had some environmental concerns. You know, we want to do things so that we are not part of the problem. We're fully aware that simply by tilling our ground and simply by doing the things that we do, that we're not letting nature fully have her way. So with certified organic practices, we're able to at least mitigate the things that we do. We're trying to work with nature as much as we can. That's kind of what some of our goals are, and we've really found over time that that's become one of our biggest reasons to continue with certified organic. The other one that I think the other farmers will agree with is soil health. If you want to grow a good crop year after year after year, you can't keep pulling the nutrients out of the soil, and you can't keep tilling it, you can't keep working it without actually degrading that soil. So you have to do things to improve that soil and give back to it. And certified organic farming encourages us to use practices to improve soil health, or to, at the very least, not damage the soil in the process. There's all kinds of research out there that shows that if we use chemicals year after year and we till the same way year after year, they have a cumulative effect to destroy the soil. And so with certified organic practices, we are required in our plans to talk about how are we going to maintain soil health. That's part of what we do. And so that's something over time I've really become sold on. As a vegetable grower, I'm really concerned about pollinators. Things like cucumbers and squash have to have pollinators. If I want to have cucumbers and squash for my customers, I have to have pollinators. So we do things with our organic practices to support those pollinators, so I have a good crop. One of the things that we frequently do is we plant different kinds of flowers that we know will attract the squash bees and other bees to that area, so that they're already present in the field where I'm going to have the squash. And then when the squash start to bloom, I've already got pollinators there. We even did something one year where we reduced the number of plants that we put in for squash, and increased number of squash plants were down by 33%. And we increased planting flowers. And I expected I'd probably lose production that year, but instead we had 33% more marketable squash. So by doing things with intercropping, having more diversity in the field, we actually had more production. So, and some of that is encouraged by the fact that we are trying to use organic practices. We also find with certified organic, for those of you who don't know, there's a lot of record keeping that's involved. And sometimes that's cited by some folks as a difficulty. Trying to keep track of all the records and having them ready to go can be difficult. But with a very complex farm like ours, the records were really valuable. It helped us make decisions, and better decisions than just saying, well, it seemed like this worked last year, let's just do it again. I actually had records, dates, numbers that supported decisions, and I didn't just make them by the seat of my pants. And I thank the certified organic practice partly for that. I might have kept records, but I might not have kept that good of records if I hadn't been going through the process. I like certified organic because it encourages thoughtful farming. Every year we have to produce a plan for what we're going to do. How are we going to support the soil? How are we going to deal with pests? How are we going to deal with weeds? What's our crop rotation? What goes where? If we spend some time thinking about what it is we want to do, and we have somebody review it, that's only going to make us better farmers. It's going to improve our skills. We have somebody providing oversight and feedback. You don't necessarily get that elsewhere. So Pete mentioned the fact that maybe we're more willing to communicate and cooperate when we're involved with organic operations than maybe when people are not. And part of that is simply the process of, I have to come up with a plan and somebody has to review it and has to get approved. Somebody will come to my farm and inspect and see that I'm following that plan. The whole process encourages us to be more of an open book. And I think that's what encourages cooperation between farmers. As far as challenges and rewards, most of our strongest challenges happened early when we were converting from the fields that had not been diverse. They were corn and soybeans. We had all kinds of pest problems. Because there was not really a predator population left. They'd pretty much been killed off by all the insecticide sprays prior to us. But it turns out pests they have more return on their life cycle. In other words, they have more babies faster than the predators do. And so there were certainly pests, but we didn't have predators to take care of them. So we had lots of trouble early on with that. And our response to that was we overplanted crops. We planted more than we needed, knowing we were going to lose a fairly high percent of those crops. And that just tells you how dedicated we were to the conversion from conventional to organic. We realized it was going to happen, so we simply said, all right, we'll plant more than we need. We will expect to lose things. What's great about that, though, is over time, we have found that pest populations kind of monitor themselves because we now have good predator populations on our farms. So we don't really have spikes of the especially the insect pests that we got early on that decimate crops. We still have some of those pests, and that's good because we need to feed our predators somehow, right? They've got to have something to eat. But we just don't have these big, massive explosions of pests that destroy a particular crop like we used to have very early on. So we've kind of gotten off of a roller coaster and put ourselves more on a even keel where things don't really spike one way or the other as much as they did early on. And that's part of the reward that comes with fighting the challenges early in the process, is that later on, you're going to have less reduction in soil health. Later on, you're going to have less spike of pests. Later on, you're going to have more skills in what you do, so it's a little easier to respond to things. It's a good process to become a skilled farmer, in my opinion. As far as financial rewards for us concerned, we don't really have an organic premium that we take advantage of for our vegetables. We like to keep our price to whatever it is we need. So we look at our expenses, decide what the price needs to be based on expenses, and then that's what we go with. We don't tack on extra even if we know we can, because we want to keep our produce available to anybody of any income as best as we are able to. But again, the word organic does help us make some sales sometimes that we wouldn't make otherwise. And the other thing I'd like to point out is because organic often supports smaller farms, they tend to support farms that have more connections to their community. And when they have more connections to their community, the farmer is more likely to purchase things from local businesses. And the sales are more likely to be from local individuals, which means the dollars stay in the communities, which is an important thing. If we want to have, as Pete said, for example, healthy communities in Iowa, healthy rural communities in Iowa, then we need more smaller farms. And if we want more smaller farms, you're going to probably have more organizations that are organic. It's just this big connected thing. And I think that's probably good enough for me today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rob. Really appreciate it. And yeah, it's always fun to hear about all the different practices, and your operation is different, and it's fun to hear about how you make it happen. So it's great. Thank you so much. All right. Next person I'll pick on will be Matt Lansing. Matt, if you're ready to go ahead and share your journey, that'd be great. Matt and I presented this fall at Clark University, which is located in Dubuque. So, Matt, whenever you're ready.
It says I can't turn on my video. It says you have to do it. It says cannot start your video because the host has disabled it. So if you could turn me on, please.
Yeah, let me see if I can do that. Ask to start the video. Here.
There we go.
Okay, perfect.
Perfect. I'm Matt Lansing, like she said, over by Dubuque, Iowa. My agricultural story is vast. I'm actually a high school agricultural education instructor and FFA advisor at Western Dubuque High School. It's my 18th year. I was bounced around between a couple different schools. I actually started here, worked here for 11 years, then went to Southwestern Tech in Fenimore, Wisconsin for 2 years as a farm business management instructor, and then Macokota, Iowa, FFA advisor and agriculture education instructor there for 5 before this year, returning to Western Dubuque. not moving those whole entire time. I stayed in my same location. But why my agriculture story is I grew up on a very, very small farm, kind of like Rob was saying. My parents owned 10 acres over by Worthington area, Dyersville area, remember that. But my dad rented some ground. We had beef cows, we had some hogs, we had a couple different things. Growing up, we farmed a farm that I currently farm by Holy Cross. And why organic? Dad farmed it organic. My dad farmed organically. He always says before it was cool, and before there was any money to be made in it. So he was doing it for forever. But anyway, the farm that I farm, and the reason why we continue to stay organic, and I've kind of taken it over and helped the gentleman that owns it. We do some crop sharing and whatnot with them. But it's 320 acres, 160 crop ground. We actually farm only about 140 of it. The rest of it is kind of pasture timber. But on that 320 acres, there's 120 sinkholes. When I say sinkholes, anywhere from softball size openings in the ground all the way up to 1 year, he had a pond that opened up probably about a 10-foot round circle and drained almost an acre pond in about 40 minutes. So, I mean, pretty big sinkholes. Sitting over one of the larger aquifers in Iowa, we decide that we don't want to dump crap down into the water for everyone else to drink. The neighbors might not agree with that, but I agree with that. When I was at Southwest Tech in Wisconsin has some really interesting rules where you cannot apply manure, chemicals, or anything within 100 feet of any direct waterway or passage to the ground. So that's a well, that's a sinkhole, that's whatever they identify. And you have to have maps and everything to prove that as a farmer. So we don't have that in Iowa, but it might be a good idea to look at some. I don't like regulation like the next guy, but at the same time, there's some good regulation for reasons. But anyway, we farm roughly. I farm that farm as well as I farm with my uncle by Balltown, by the Overlook. You're ever at Breitbach Restaurant? We farm roughly about 100 acres there. My uncle's farm is mainly hay. It's also down into hay. This year we did have 18 acres of corn on there, but it'll go right back to an alfalfa grass mix for as long as it can be. The reason being is Rolling Hills in Northeast Iowa. It's a pretty hilly farm, and we're going to utilize the maintaining it organically just because of the hills, and we don't want to overtill that farm. Between the two farms, we have roughly what I am in control of this year was 30 acres of corn. Roughly between the two farms, roughly about 120 acres of hay ground. I also have a small beef herd that is not organic, that most of that feed goes into. And the reason being for not organic on the livestock side of things is just it's really, really hard to buy and have a set group of customers unless I'm doing like Rob or I think the first Kim said that they go right to the consumer. We go right to the consumer with the beef, but we have a really hard time finding a locker that can maintain the organic certification all the way through that process. And also at the same time, like any livestock, if something gets sick, we'd like to be able to treat it without having to leave our farm. We'd like to see what the end product still might look like because we do know what happens to the animal the whole entire lifespan. That's one of the big reasons that I farm. A few things that excite me about organic and a few challenges. Exciting is I can do this on a smaller scale. Rob was saying about smaller scale. I think Kim talked about smaller scale. I think even Pete talked about smaller scale. I think Pete and I actually talked about 2 years ago about the farms over there in Wisconsin because last year I got not suckered into, but a land tenant called me over by Darlington and had 40 acres that the tenant backed out in late May. So I helped her out and got her going. And then it's in another tenant's hands this year. But sometimes opportunities, you don't know what they look like. So for me, I think there's a lot of opportunity in agriculture, especially with some of the landlords that don't want it to go to the best guy. Right now in my neck of the woods, I'm trying to have a couple conversations with people. They might not see the benefit to organic yet, but we're just trying to get the foot in the door to have access to a little bit more ground. So I can do kind of like Pete and a couple of people said, bring someone else in with me and maybe share it. I work full time. I have a son that's a junior in high school. He doesn't show a lot of interest in that yet, but I have a 7-year-old son that loves everything that we do, where You always have to be thinking in the back of your mind, what's next? How am I going to get out of this? I think that's the number one thing I preach when I was at Farm Business Management. Every good business plan needs an exit strategy too. So what happens if you can't maintain what you're doing? Who are you going to bring in to succeed you? What direction will the farm go from there? Opportunities. We sell about 20 head of beef and about 30 head of hogs a year off of our farm direct to consumer. That market is blowing up. If we could find some local lockers that would actually be willing to do some of the organic inspections and things like that, I can easily see our farm going organic on livestock as well. Challenges, kind of like I talked about a little bit already, are kind of mimic the opportunities. Access to things, land, fertilizer, processing facilities, markets. In organic, I think we have to do a lot of the self-building. You have to be willing to be the face of it. You have to be willing to be out and shaking hands and meeting your customers. And then I think Kim said this, you have to be willing to use your product. If you're not willing to use your own product, why are we going through the process? And I think that's important for people to understand too. To me, I think there's a lot of opportunity to be very, very small, but yet be able to make a living off this. I've met guys who are organic that have literally an acre of vegetables, and they can, that's their job for the year. And I always think outside the box. I always think about how can we bridge the gap on things. Quite honestly, I look at where I'm growing with my livestock and the benefits that we could have if I could team up with some of those people that might have a small CSA or something like that, where they already have clientele too. How can we help each other out? Because he has clients that, or he or she has clients that would desire a product that I might be able to raise. So I think there's a lot of partnerships that can be explored within agriculture as far as organics go as well. For the most part, I'm spread out. My farms are not next to each other. So I have 120 acres and my livestock is roughly about 25 miles away from where my crop ground is at, where I winter them, I should say, where my parents are at. My parents are old, they're 83 and 82. My dad had a stroke roughly about 3 years ago. So the reason why I have my livestock there is so I can see them every single day. In the summer times, we get them out, we get them on the grass when we can. In the hills, we like to run after residue of crops. We even like to run ask a few neighbors and things that we can utilize some of their crop ground for residue consumption as well. But I think with the regenerative movement, we're going to see a lot more people exploring organic a little bit more as well, because I think there's a lot of benefits that are starting to finally be researched, maybe is the right terms, with livestock and crops together. Cows getting out there after the corn comes off, grazing off maybe that last crop of hay, and the impact that has on your crop, on your farm, your soil building abilities, I think are greatly improved. But anyway, that's what I do. It's one of those things, I like doing it. I like being part of the family. The economics of the whole thing is what drew me to it, but that's not what keeps me in it. So I think that's what some other people said already as well. And then family, it's something that if we have to get pulled in my soybean field on 4th of July, unfortunately, sometimes my kids and family have to come help with me. But some of the best memories my kids and my nieces and nephews have is when they're doing something like that. So it's experiences. So it's like building and getting back to our roots a little bit. But that's what I had. I enjoyed presenting. I presented at Clark University. My wife actually works at Clark University as well, so that went well. And Olga, thank you for the opportunity, for everything you've been doing on educating other people. So that's all I have. If any questions, ask.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. Yeah, pulling weeds builds character, right?
I have a good friend that always says he doesn't do anything as a job. It's always recreational. Then you have to have fun with it. So.
That's right. That's right. I love it. Love it. Well, thank you so much, Matt. Really appreciate you presenting with me at Clark this year. And thank you for sharing your story. All right. Well, now I'll go ahead and pick on the other Matt. We have Matt Miller. So Matt, Matt and I, we presented at, oh gosh, I got to take a look at my notes. Matt, where did we present? Wordberg. Yes. So this was our first year at Wordberg. And Matt, thank you for coming. Thank you for presenting with me. And if you want to go ahead and share your story, the floor is yours.
Okay. I guess in listening to Kim and Pete and Matt, there and Rob too, they have mentioned a lot of really good points. And I think, you know, I echo a lot of those same ideas about what drew me to organic. I grew up on a small family farming operation where we had pigs and cattle and sheep and corn and soybeans and oats, and rotated our crops. And, you know, there was always this concern about chemicals and what the side effects of those are on the environment as well as other people. And so, and then with, you know, a smaller operation, the economics of being viable are difficult. And so the organic just seemed to be a good fit. So I started, I went to Iowa State University and I graduated in the year 2000. And I had taken Kathleen Dellett's organic agriculture class and learned a lot about organic from that class. And then after I graduated, that's when we started doing some organic row crops on my folks' farm. And then I eventually rented some land and have an operation of my own where I have about 600 acres of organic crops. And I have a full-time hired man that helps me with that. I also have 6 children. The oldest is a junior, the youngest in high school, and the youngest is 4 years old. So the older ones are able to help with things like Matt Lansing said, you know, pulling weeds and walking beans and that sort of thing. And I guess, you know, like I said, there's a lot of commonality in our story about why organic is beneficial. And I guess I think a good image to just kind of summarize things is that if you think about your tool chest, your toolbox, all the tools in your toolbox are designed for a certain purpose. And just like our bodies are designed to work a certain way, and so is all of nature. And our bodies are not designed, we're not designed to digest these names of ingredients that have names that are so long that we can't pronounce. And GMOs, those are not natural genes to be in those particular crops. And so when we use our tools that are in our toolbox for things that they're not designed for, like if we use a crescent wrench as a hammer, or if we use a screwdriver as a pry bar, we're abusing our tools. And to go and put these things into our body that our bodies are not designed for, and also to, you know, use all these chemicals that are not natural, it's really, you know, abusive to our bodies and the environment. And that is, I guess, kind of the summary of why I think it's important to farm organically. And I guess that's, I don't know, what else do you want me to say, Olga?
Well, you got another 15 minutes, my friend. So if you'd
okay.
like to, you can expand on, you know, your maybe your background on or being an organic certifier and stuff like that.
Sure. Well, I was an organic inspector from 2004 until 2020, and I worked full-time for the Iowa Department of Agriculture. And so I got to visit a lot of organic farmers, including Rob. I did his first organic inspection, I believe, if I remember correctly. And it was a great experience because, you know, meeting people is always a pleasure. And you learn new things by getting to come onto their operations. And so it was really an invaluable experience. It helped me to learn a lot of things to help my own operation as well. And I hope that the farmers that I inspected were able to get some benefit from the service that I provided. And so I did that full time, and then I went to part time as my farm increased. The other thing is that I help represent a company called Treffler, and they make organic weed control equipment, especially a tine harrow, which they're very popular for. And so I guess what's neat about that is, well, and first of all, with Pete says his equipment is all paid for. My equipment isn't all paid for, but technology does have a place, and I have GPS on my tractors, which makes cultivation a lot more pleasurable, and also increases the accuracy and effectiveness of cultivation equipment. And so that's a technology that is really helpful. But then also just the design of a tine harrow, it's fascinating what that tool is able to do in order to minimize the amount of hand weeding that is done. And there's other things too, whether it's like these biopesticides and things like that. But I guess what I'm saying is it's neat what innovation can do with still using things as they're designed to be used for, not just throwing chemicals at it. So I find that fascinating. And
How
go
many
ahead.
how many acres do you farm, and what is your rotation?
Sure. And I have, like I said, 600 acres that I farm organically. Hey, now I got kids that are coming in. Somebody tried to maybe bumped somebody. Hopefully we'll minimize that disruption. But I have 600 acres, and my rotation is corn, then soybeans, then corn, and then oats and alfalfa. And the alfalfa gets plowed under after one season, and I go back to corn again. I use manure to fertilize, and the alfalfa that I till under is also for nitrogen. And so that is my crop rotation. My soybeans are food grade soybeans, so they're used for soy milk. The corn, I've sold some as food grade as well, and then some of it goes for like chicken feed. And then my oats go to grain millers at St. Ansgar, and they are food grade as well. So a lot of my crops get used for human consumption. I know Kim said she was growing food and not feed, and even though I have these traditional feed crops in Iowa, a lot of it does go for food. And what else do you want to know, Olga?
Well, actually, that will be a question for all of you. So you can, the ones that have already shared, the farmers that have already shared, you can ponder on that. And Rob, you mentioned some of that, but markets, how did you find your market? So that's something that in the evaluation, the students want to hear more about. So how did you find your markets, Matt?
Sure. I basically talked to other farmers, and then this was, when we started, it was, 2000 was the first organic crop. So it was a little bit different then. And the main crop that people were trying to grow organically was soybeans, because they were sending them to Japan. But then the feed market for corn was just kind of starting to emerge. And this was before, the NOP came out with the organic regulation. So things were different then, and not as well developed. So I guess other farmers, I just asked them, where do they sell their corn and their soybeans? And then that's what I started to do. And once I found a buyer that was a good, consistent buyer that paid for the crops, then we continued to sell to that person. But nowadays, in the like 2006, and by that time, there were people that would just be calling me, because you're on the list of certified organic farmers, and they would get your name and call you asking to buy corn and soybeans. So it's pretty easy if you're growing those crops, because the demand is so high.
That's good to hear. That's really good to hear. Well, Matt, thank you so much for sharing your story. I really appreciate you being part of our college visits this year. So thank you so much. All right. The next person I'm going to pick on is Jeff Olson. Jeff and I presented at Iowa Wesleyan University in Mount Pleasant. And Jeff actually has, he's a dual farming operator, so he has some conventional land in addition to his organic land. And Jeff, I'm gonna go ahead and ask for you to unmute and ask for you to start your video.
You sure? I'm bad cold. I make my story when I was playing, which was in the garden, I think. I just wanted to be a farmer. I'm fifth generation here in a little town called Burger, and my ancestors were Swedish, and I went to August College. My grandfather's a church school. Brought home a full-blood Swedish immigrant girl. So her dad came over from Sweden. So we've been farming the same land for a century. We didn't get the home place, but it's somebody else. But that tree farm, 120 years. My great grand. And he retired in 1930. Land was out for about 2 days. Grandfather farm degraded the farm being on it. When great grandfather died, dad took it over, and he was farming traditionally, and he thought his were going to sell him. He went back to school and got teaching. He started teaching too. So that gave me the opportunity to be the farm when we keep farming bull. We had a church we farmed with, and he's my mentor. He was a grain dealer. So I learned how to work and learn and it's still in my blood. Help and share each other and be competition neighbors. I went to Iowa State with my grain handling back, and got an engineering and grain handling. Came to the farm, went to Northeast Iowa. Father actually, though he was not certified. He was a hauler. It was an 80-acre coffee farm. One time when we got to make beans because from Indiana, but that deal was in youth development and community development and extension. So somebody got us through the 70s. My construction experience got through the 80s, and built Elders grain business. Those kind of things also led to renting another 4 acres that from a family I did construction. And my mentor and my family and this other family I took over renting all had grain bins. And my operation is about 13 acres. We have the ability to preserve a lot of things. And we've done that for production all years. We have done non-GMO and corn fruit, instant basis, Quaker, and then also soy and blue corn, high starch, high oil. We've done anything we can do for value add. And got Gail's assistance and got in farmers. We were rich back in the 80s, trying to make Nodal a better system. A lot of practice for them going. Is practice for our practice for now. So we've been a supporting members of that. It's wonderful bunch that can help share ideas and be supportive and very good source of information for people. With and randomized replicated research projects. We've done a lot of research. I'm doing currently. I do a lot of things differently. One of the things we did differently to try to add value is become ISO 9000 certified at one time. It didn't really pay back, but it made us beekeepers. In the 90s, when I got my mastery, we were working with speaking about sustainable practices. I've been a somewhat district conservation commissioner through all these years, and always been concerned about soil health and protect land from erosion and cover crops. And her and Margaret Smith, her husband Doug Alec, and Margaret are farmers, PI members. They will just come back farm or our area community and try to buy an organic farm. So I went over there and he ended up not being able to do it because he couldn't swing the equipment. I went over and walked on that farm, and Kathleen was always trying to get me to go organic, go organic. We walked on that farm, and I could believe the beautiful soil health. I thought, this is something we should try. We didn't end up doing that with his operation, but we did own farm about 15 years ago. And I have farms are spread out. My grandfather was buying, great grandfather was buying for rural charities. So we're 5 miles radius. And a lot of those black farms don't have fences anymore. And I think integration of the livestock is very important. So here in the home and another spot down the road that has yet. My livestock consists of cattle, and we raise them on out, try to sell as many as we can privately, but there's a concern about the being able to distribute them. They're not organic in those because I can feed our ways from non-organic farms and mistakes that I made. I delete the mistakes if I ever get any spilled grain from conventional farms. But livestock is a very important thing. Our ration includes hay, of course, to grow for the corn. I just can't expand anymore. We've only got about 150 acres certified organic. So rotation is corn, soybeans, small grains, which were oats, and gradually gravitated to barley, still barley. And we found out the craft brewers wanted 2-row barley, so we've tried that for the last 2 years. Not been able to get anybody to malt it yet, but we're working with that. And then alfalfa, which goes the nitrogen for the corn next year. So we usually raise alfalfa for the nitrogen, and I've sold organic alfalfa, but then you get rid of your nutrients off the farm, so that's not good. Most of it gets fed back to our farm and stays on the land. The markets we use are fully local. Hay to somebody in Ohio, and they have no necessity. It's not what I wanted, and you have to negotiate later on. I don't like that. I'd rather sell it local. Now, sell a lot of our grains, corn, and feed barley to a dairy field dairy, Francis T. And Francis has bought some. He has a hay crop. People bought our hay, and that's still 40 miles away, but it's considered local. We sell our soybeans to Professional Protein, Washington, and provide a lot of the soybean meal, and we sell some corn there too, to make organic poultry feed out near Kelowna and other organic farmers. So we're not too far from the Brighton Blueberry Farm. We're not too far away. The things have been that close is I can haul itself in my place. We used to raise food grade soybeans and sold it to a place in Oskaloosa, which was, but they started to process more protein products than beans, and soybeans had to be hauled, and I don't have a license for that. So we started wanting to feed soybeans. The opportunity to interact with the domestic was probably a good thing. I have history of being kind of a trying to say things in different. We stayed non-GMO for a long time until Mother Nature wiped out what camps we were using on the conventional. So I couldn't control the temps and things. So I did break down, and we do GMO on some of the farms now. So in fact, my mentor passed, he wrote it in his contract, so that was in it, be used around on that type of thing. We still switch it to Rudy and ends over there. Nature rules. I try to highlight anything to do to immigrate, because that's what built this big black soil, and there was a village, and so protect the land and keep it degrading. We've done a bad thing from what Mother Nature been down year to year, degraded much so far. So a bit of our story. I have seen the communities in the Northeast Iowa. I've been growing up there 45 and used to ride that, and to all those 30 and 40 cow deers, and they used to take care of their land, rotations, and that's pretty much now up there. These were, and the industries were vital, and it's fast long down on here where we're close to them. We have a river mark. Grain is hanging down here. They're consolidated confinement, but so they are, and we do get minerals places, and certified that they don't use additives. We can use on our organic crops, but integrating that resource important to the soils for soil health, and not spending, take nitrogen out of the air and put it right back into energy, making it from alcohol. So those are the things. We built a lot of our own things with my engineering background. Latest I'm trying is I had the high boy build about 20 years ago, putting cover crops on. Tried it on cornhead this year. We'll see how that works out. So we're still covering 80% of our ground cover crops, trying to keep green all year long. And it doesn't work to, we rent land, and it just doesn't do to make all work to be, and then and that's with them. I think it's, and don't, my tendency is very long on some of these farms, seriously, so it's not real risk. You never know when things are changing, or two generation is dying out, and the kids are winning and taking runs. So we take our land like that help.
All right, thank you so much, Jeff. Yes, thank you so much. Sorry, you were kind of cutting in and out, just FYI. I'm not sure. Maybe the connection is a little bit less strong on your end or something. But thank you so much for being part of these presentations and for sharing your story. Very much appreciated. Thank you again. All right, so the final presentation will be from Chris Wilson, and Chris and Keith Wilson, his dad. We presented at Loras College earlier this fall, and we presented 2 times on two different classes. So Chris, thank you so much for being part of this, and thank you for sharing your story. You can go ahead and get started if you'd like.
Thanks, Olga. Hi, everybody. Love the presentations. I don't know, Dad, if you want to jump on here as well and just kind of chime in whenever you think is okay. But I'll give the kind of our farm's history. Like Olga said, we did present down at Loras. We had 2 classes, and it was really exciting to be able to get in front of students and tell about, farming in general, because a lot of them really didn't come from a farming background. In fact, there's only 1 student in 2 classes that came from a farm, in the 2 classes that we presented at. So I thought that was pretty neat. I think that they enjoyed it. We enjoyed it. We got to talk about our farm, which I'll do now a little bit. We're an organic dairy farm located in Southwest Wisconsin. So I know a lot of these, I think a lot.
Oh, wait a minute. I think it's showing your email. Go ahead and go back to your presentation. Yeah.
Okay.
You
Sorry.
must be sharing your desktop screen.
Yeah,
Sorry.
probably.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. If you want to go ahead and maybe close out your email and then do a slideshow on this, starting from this slide.
Is that
So we're seeing your desktop screen again.
okay? How about now?
Now we are seeing the presentation, and go
Okay.
ahead and click on slideshow just so that we see each slide individually. Yeah, there you go. Yep, perfect. There you go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
So we're located in Southwest Wisconsin. We're an organic dairy, and we are a multi-generational farm. So my dad took over the farm from his parents in the 1970s. Really straight out of college or in college, he started to really run the farm back in the early 70s. Graduated from college and took over from there, and really, adopted a lot of the practices that were kind of in vogue in that period of time. Ripped out a lot of the fence lines, put in a lot of row crops, sprayed everything, everything you could find and everything that you were told to spray. So did that for 15 years and really did nothing but go backwards, as my dad, I'm sure, would reiterate, and decided actually in the early 90s to put some fences back up, put some cows back out on pasture and start grazing again. So that was kind of our first step back into the direction in which we ultimately spent the last 30 years going, which is to really try to reperennialize the landscape, get away from fence row to fence row corn production, and diversify the crops that we are growing, and really focus on producing, a really healthy dairy milk product out the door. And ultimately, we moved from NFO in the mid 90s to join Organic Valley in 2000. Our transition to organic farming started in 1996. We had a group of neighbors that were either transitioned, or were looking at transitioning. So we were lucky that we were in a good community to support us in kind of moving in a direction that was very new for a lot of farmers in that region. We were, I believe, we're about 160th or 170th organic farm on Organic Valley Milk Truck. Today, there's over 1,600 Organic Valley Milk farms across the country. My dad and my cousins, which are the ones that are on the screen here, Calvin, Kim, and I don't know if Kevin's on there. Yes, he is. So Calvin, Kim, and Kevin grew up on the farm, and they're my first cousins. They're about 10 to 15 years older than me. And they really, came out of school and took over, partnered with my dad, and started really kind of in the late 90s and the early 2000s. They really grew up on the farm, worked there most of their lives, and started to get ownership in that period. And I think, you have to help me maybe a little bit with the questions, because that was my email. I think the things that we've learned along the way is that the soil health is is the building block of everything else. If you've got healthy soils, it translates all the way up into healthy animals, and what we believe is healthy milk that's sold to the consumers. And we've really seen land that, right, wrong, or otherwise, was farmed very industrially for 20 years and lost topsoil, lost organic matter, lost biological vibrancy. We took that land and put it back into a diversified system, an organic system, a perennialized system, and we're restoring that soil health back to at least back to where it was prior to fence row to fence row corn farming. So I think that was a big, something we philosophically, believed in, and to see it play out over 30 years and see a lot of the data that we collected over that window of time reflect, that philosophy through stronger soils, more productivity, et cetera, has been pretty awesome reward. I think the thing that's fun about organics, and this is probably why I'm most interested in farming and being part of our farm, is there's constantly exploration and research and new ideas that you're testing out. I think on organic farms, a lot of the research is being done on the farm. A lot of experiments are being done on the farm. We're testing out our own ideas, and I think that's been something that we've really embraced on our farm. And we generally will host 1 or 2 field days every year, kind of bring people out, share ideas. I love going to organic conferences and sharing those ideas. I love calls like this just because I get to hear from other farmers in other areas that are talking about their ideas as well. Let's see here.
So share a little bit with us. It looks like you guys have grown your operation tremendously over the years, which is really exciting to see, and kudos to you guys. So it looks like back in '96 you had about 1,200 acres, and now you are at about 3,500 acres, which is a significant amount for an organic operation. Can you share with us a little bit more on how that 3,500 acres is divided and what kind of rotations you have going on those acres?
Yeah, you bet. Let's see. So we are, like I said, a multi-generational farm. There's 7 families that make a living on the farm. We've kind of decided, in our case, that we kind of all stuck together. We found a way to kind of farm together versus breaking out into each family having their own farm. And I think that certainly has its challenges, but it also brings a lot of opportunity with it. And with that, we have expanded. We've, as basically the next generation, which I have 2 second cousins that now have a family of their own that work full-time on the farm, along with my first cousins and myself, and my parents still work on the farm full-time. So I think that's been kind of the core of the expansion. As each members come back and wanted to participate, we have generally added a few acres here and there. With our rotation, we do grow a lot of different things. We have, anywhere from 7 to 12 different crops on the farm at any given point each year across 3,500 acres. 2,500, roughly 2,600 of that is crops. The other 900,000 is pastured in different forms. So we have, and this is kind of a list of them here. We've got your row crops that you generally would see, corn, soybeans in a cropping operation. We grow winter wheats, hard red, soft red. We grow winter rye. We started including winter barley in a double cropping system where we'll grow winter barley after corn, and then plant soybeans after that in late June. So we've done that the last few years and had a lot of success with that. Excited to continue to try to advance that. Alfalfa and forages are roughly half of our cropping acres, and that ultimately finds a way back into the dairy and through livestock on that side. So I think some of the challenges, if we talk about some of the challenges that we've had, is just really trying to manage the scale and diversity of the operation in a way that checks all of the boxes that are necessary to be successful. If we like the large diversity because it allows us to spread out our operation across the full growing season and really not put all of our eggs in one basket and not require, all of the work be done in a short window of time. So that's been a huge asset. But with that, we also have, a lot of different things that we have to know and a lot of hats that we have to wear. So that can be a pretty big challenge. A lot of the role that I play in is more of that, less of the day-to-day, more of the big picture stuff and trying to determine, what rotation this year, next year, and the next 3 or 4 years out, and what that looks like, and how to manage that, whether it's fertility and manure management across the marketing of all the different things that we sell off the farm, crops and dairy and meat. So that definitely is a challenge, is just trying to fit all those pieces together and make it successful.
So your farming operation, based on the research that has been coming out, is like the ideal system, organic system, because you obviously have your animals that you can utilize their manure for fertility purposes, which is amazing. So of course, you utilize Organic Valley for your organic milk. Can you share a little bit more what other markets you utilize for your other crops?
Sure. So we do sell a lot of our crops locally. So forages, and if we do have extra corn and soybeans, we will sell those a lot of times locally, especially corn. Soybeans and the 2 wheats generally are marketed more broadly. One second here.
How much English have to eat when you live?
All right, I'll be right up in a little bit. Sorry about that. So soybeans and the 2 wheats we sell a little bit more broadly. We do sell some locally, but the hard red wheat goes to a mill in Ridgeway, Wisconsin, which is about 20 miles away, and that gets converted into flour and sold across the country as all-purpose flour. And the soft red wheat right now, we haven't found a really good milling market for that. So we've just been selling that as food grade wheat. And then the soybeans are sold. That one's probably the one that moves the furthest. That can a lot of times get sold into Indiana and other parts of the country that are buying it. We sell some locally, but it's probably split about 50-50 that goes east, and the other 50% stays local that we sell.
And when you mention local, is that through farmers markets in your area, or what other avenues?
There's probably 2 sources. About probably 2/3 of the local sales are direct farmer sales. So it's other farmers that we've built up relations with over the years that we sell to. That is especially the case on forages that we have a kind of a network in our area that will buy from us, each year. Then we also sell the cash and feed supply, a good part of our crop, and they use it to convert for a number of different feeds, but a lot of it is poultry in Southwest Wisconsin.
Very cool. Okay, and then one story that I was just absolutely fascinated with that Keith shared during our presentation was that story when I want to say it was 2012, when you guys had a really bad drought in your area, and you guys were able to harvest like 100, don't correct me if I'm wrong, 110 or 120 corn bushel where your neighbors couldn't harvest anything. Can you please share more about that, or correct me if I didn't say that correctly?
Yeah, no, that's spot on. So basically in 2012, I mean, I think, maybe a number of farmers that here may have remembered it was a historic drought, one of the worst droughts since the late 1980s to hit the Midwest. And in our area specifically, we had large swath of county yields for corn production that were down in the double digits, we'll say, anywhere from 20 to 80 bushels on whole farms for farm yields. And we feel because of more of a resilient system, better soil development, we came out of it. We still we're below trend yields, but we were seeing our whole farm averages around that 100 to 120 bushels per acre versus an APH that's probably like 160 organically. So locally, you're seeing conventional yields, like I said, 20 to 60, 20 to 80 on 200 APH ground. And, we continue to get, 60 to 70% of what our normal crop would be in that drought environment, where we had, I think that year we had basically, an inch and a half of rain from about June 1st to end of September in our area.
Fascinating. Well, thank you so much for sharing, Chris. And then I'll pose this question to you, and I'll also want to hear from other farmers here today. This is a question that came from a lot of the evaluations from students. So what is the biggest and most common reason more conventional farmers don't switch to organic, and why isn't organic more widespread? That's kind of a tough one, but I'll ask you, Chris, first, and then see if anyone else wants to jump in.
Yeah, I think probably the big reason probably just the complexity of it, that it is a more complex farming approach, and that certainly is intimidating to make that leap and jump in. And I think a lot of times you do see you see some smaller scale adoption that for new farmers that maybe come in and try it and ultimately do move all or most of their acres in that direction. But that to me would be my intuition for the biggest reason.
Okay. Kim commented here in the chat box, lack of desire to learn something new or embrace change. The other thing that I think has been noted before is the age of farmers. The average age of a farmer in the United States is like 56 years of age or something along those lines. So ultimately, if someone has been farming a certain way all of their life, it would be very challenging to move into a new direction later in life. So that's why it's so important that the next generation can take this leap of faith and move to organic farming. Any other thoughts, guys, regarding this question?
Olga, I have one.
Okay.
Matt Lansing. I think it's the challenges of the unknown, kind of like Kim says, is they've been brought up and they've been raised a certain way where what they don't know, sometimes I think we're very proud in agriculture where we don't want to admit what we don't know. Sorry, I just turned my video on. We don't want to admit what we don't know. And then some of us are very good at going out and researching or finding other people to network with. But I think there's just a certain population that they're going to do it the way mom and dad did it, no matter what, if that's organic or if that's conventional or whatever. The biggest thing when I talk to landlords and stuff, an opportunity to rent ground or talk to them about future down the road when they do want to retire. And I say, well, I might transition it to organic, and well, you don't get a good yield. There's a pride thing. And I think a lot of people hang their hat on, okay, I get 200 bushels of corn. great. Well, I get 180 organic and I sell it for twice as much as, or you know what I'm saying? Where I think there's an unknown there where, and pride thing there that some farmers have a very, very hard time. Like, and I know Wilson's over there are phenomenal farmers in Southwest Wisconsin. And there's a lot of really good organic farmers from Southwest Wisconsin. I think where they built that community where people can look to it and say, look at what they've done, you know, where we don't have that so much in Iowa. And that river's really big. And some people never travel to Southwest Wisconsin to see the opportunity that, or the complexity, how I should say, of what Southwest Wisconsin has done. Southwest Wisconsin has done a phenomenal job with supporting organic, where I think in Iowa, we have some of these farmers yet that think that if you have 1 square mile of field, that just has to be a row crop farm no matter what, versus seeing the complexity of a crop rotation that could really help build that soil and still ultimately give them the economic boost or the economic benefit that the row crops do. So to me, it's unknowns, and then also hang your hat on the success or the little bit of bragging point, I guess what I'd call it. But I'll leave it there.
Measuring your farm success by the yield, basically.
Yeah.
Rather than looking at like the whole bigger picture potential.
Yeah, because I know some people that pull 300 bushel corn in Iowa and they make $200 an acre. You know what I'm saying? Where what's your goal? Is your goal 300 bushel corn, or is your goal $200 an acre? Is your goal $400 an acre? Is your goal $500 an acre profit? You know what I'm saying? Where I think that gets lost when you start talking margins. Margins, I think, are very, very similar. But it comes down to what's the goal of that farmer. You know, if we're talking pure economics, yeah, $7 corn right now is great for the farmer, but what's next you're going to bring when corn comes down to $5.50 and the fertilizer price where it's at and the land price where it's at? You know, the margins, I think, are more consistent organic. And I'm not saying they're better. I'm just saying they're more consistent, where they're not going sky high 1 year and drop, the bottom's falling out 2 years later. So I do think they want to measure the farm on yield versus profitability or economics per acre. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay.
Anybody else can share too?
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Keith,
And
did you want to add?
yeah. Hi, this is Keith Wilson. I went through the 70s, I went through the 80s, and I went through the chemical revolution.
You're cutting out, Keith. You're cutting out.
Do that way. I like organic. You got to have. Oh, you can't hear me?
Yeah, we can
hear me now.
Hear you now. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
getting better internet
But
connection there.
in organic, yeah, in organics you have an open mind, which out. And
So I mean, I think what the point he's going to make is that I think in a lot of organic community farmers, they tend to be more explorers. They tend to be more open-minded. They tend to think, you know, what can we do versus kind of, you know, being more in the lines of like, this is where we are, and not being able to see that the path forward past some of those more challenging things that are in organic systems. You know, I think, you know, so I think organic farmers a lot of times embrace that challenge. And I think that is a cultural difference that I see sometimes. I think Pete too wanted to jump in and maybe.
Yeah, I guess for me, one of the things I see a lot in talking to organic farmers, in certain areas, there's not enough density for other farmers to see organics really done well. either from a field management point of view or a financial or a community status point of view. You can go to a couple areas I can think of where there is a concentration of organic farming, and because of that, it develops its own ecosystem, and that competitive factor that can somewhat be in conventional is very much alive in those areas, which is both good and bad, I think. But I think there are, resistance to change is out there. That's real. Part of it is economics. I mean, the economics in conventional farming aren't leading people to automatically change into becoming organic farmers unless they have a different philosophy or vision. And just about every other philosophy and vision out there, and I don't want to sound conspiratorial, but it's all supported by the image of what is success for a farmer. And that's based on bushels. That's incentivized by assets or acreage or, large dimensions. It's not about either profitability. That's kind of one of those unseen metrics as you're driving down the road. It's just a different sort of value proposition that you have if you're going to be organic farming. I think one of the things is conventional farming, and I guess I saw this when I was in the co-op, I thought there's an atrophy muscle, a muscle atrophy that goes on if you're a conventional farmer. You don't think about agronomy the same way. You don't think about soil biology. You don't think about, even the economics are different. You're always looking, first of all, about offloading risk if you're a conventional farming. I'm going to offload my chemical risk by going GMO and then Roundup. I'm going to offload my fertility by just going variable rate with what the co-op wants to sell me. I'll hire a consultant to market my grain because I don't want to get involved in that. It's too messy. I'll even do it with an accountant to go ahead and manage all my books. But with organic, you have to take a little more responsibility, and that's good and bad if your management is up to it. I'm thrilled by the opportunity to exert management. And even when it goes sideways or south, I can live with the consequences a lot better than writing checks out to co-ops and to banks and to machinery dealers and to everybody else and hope there's something left at the end of the day. Crop insurance is another example of subsidizing, that system that's out there. Now, it's a safety net in organic. I don't fault that as well. But it does keep people comfortably atrophied in that conventional market.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights, Pete. And Jeff added into the chat box, it is different and some like not to rock the boat. More management and labor scares some away. All right. Anyone else that would like to add to this and answer this question? Willie.
I'll just add one thing based off of where Pete was going. I've noticed I have some folks that I know in our area that are conventional farmers, and they like to mention the one time they tried a different crop like triticale. And then they'll tell me exactly how bad that year was for them. And just based off the reminder that organic requires us to use different tools, different ways of looking at things. But then when somebody tries out organic, they have not exercised those tools and those skills, yet they expect to be perfectly ready to do everything. And so they try it once, they're doomed to fail because they have not exercised those muscles. And then they're unwilling to try it a second time. I think that's often what ends up happening is they take one shot at it, they expect it to be magical, and it's not magical. And the point is you have to do some learning, you have to do some work, you have to try it a couple times and make adjustments because it's different. It requires those skills and you got to build them.
Yeah, you have to fail forward. Basically is what it boils down to. Willie, let's give you another try because we all want to hear from you. Let's see if maybe your connection magically is a little bit better.
I was going to tell him to turn off his video and then be able to hear him.
Yeah, let me turn off your video and that way we can hopefully hear you. Here, I'll turn off your video. Here, yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to touch bases because we've went from where there was hardly anybody in organic to now where we got universities and we got people down the road that we can relate to, and we can do a lot of experimenting on the farm ourselves. But we need to do what is going on now, like what you're doing, Olga, getting around to the classes and stuff. This is just amazing. I would have never dreamed when we first started into organics that we would come to this here. I think one of the big things that we all have to be a little bit understanding too, beside, as you know, I'm pretty involved in the health of the soil. That's the primary thing that I'd be farming conventionally today or any other way, but the health of the soil is so important. The life of the soil, all them living organisms that you have to take care of, and really take care of them as much as you're taking care of your cows and your plants. And but the marketing is so important. It's going to be a thing because you got to make profits. You got to be able to. We got 7 families that are all are related to us, those families have to make a living off this farm, and you have to have be represented somehow, so that you make a good living off this farm. And so marketing is very important, and that's why we got ourselves involved with Organic Valley, because that was their concept, that farmers need to be able to price their product themselves, and that's what the board of directors and stuff are told to do by the members, by the owners. But we need this. We can have this. It don't have to be Organic Valley, but we all have to be work together on the marketing side too, of this here, because I know we'll never go back to ever, even if we didn't have, we'd never go back to raising or to be conventional as far as our habits and the way we run our farm. And I sure hope my nephews and my sons and them won't either, but I know I never ever will.
That's awesome. Very cool. Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. All right, you guys. Well, we're kind of getting close to the 2-hour mark. So what I will plan to do is I will plan to share this on our YouTube channel. And then I'll share this recording from our YouTube with all of the professors so that they can kind of spread that out with their students. But thank you everyone for being here today, and thank you for being part of these presentations with me this semester. I'm so very grateful to each and every one of you, and I will be in touch with you guys again early 2023 to set up those field days, hopefully with each and every one of you, and have the students come check out your farms in person. So thank you again to all of you, and hope you have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and thanks for all you do.
Thanks, Olga. Thanks, everybody.
See you
Thanks,
guys.
everybody.